The Galactic Council chamber shimmered with light, walls lined with crystalline panels pulsing in rhythm with 1,000 alien languages. Delegates from across the stars gathered around the crescent dais, their voices rising like a storm. At the far end, seated in the shadows, was the human representative, Commander Elias Vey. He was quiet. Too quiet. Unlike the booming voices of reptilian warlords or the silken orations of insectoid diplomats, Elias rarely spoke. He listened, his dark eyes steady, his expression unreadable. In the Council's politics, silence was seen as weakness, and weakness meant irrelevance. Humans, scoffed the Yalthran admiral, his tendrils curling with disdain. A backwater species barely capable of faster-than-light travel. Why do we even let them sit among us? They have nothing to offer, hissed a delegate of the Vorkai. No great fleets, no colonies, no empire. Just silence. Murmurs of agreement swept the chamber. The Council had dismissed Earth's warnings, dismissed its calls for peace, dismissed its quiet human commander. But Elias did not respond. He merely folded his hands and watched. The first spark of war. It began at the edge of Sol. The Vorkai sent their fleets, hundreds of needle-shaped warships, bristling with plasma cannons, sweeping toward Earth's defenses. They expected resistance, a futile defense line, perhaps a desperate plea for surrender. What they found instead was one ship. The Aegis. The ship was black, its hull lined with scars from centuries of hidden wars. It bore no insignia, no banners. Only silence. At its helm stood Elias Vey, the quiet human they had laughed at in the Council. The Vorkai hailed him. Surrender, human. Lay down your arms, and we may leave a few of you alive. Elias did not answer. When the Vorkai opened fire, their beams vanished into the void, swallowed by the Aegis' unseen shields. Then, with a flicker of light, the ship answered. One pulse. One strike. Entire squadrons imploded into rivers of crimson debris. Bodies floated in the void, drifting like shattered glass. Silence followed. The Council's laughter turns to fear. At first, the Council dismissed the reports. A lucky shot, they said. Propaganda, others argued. A dying race clawing for survival. But then came the second battle. And the third. Each time, the Aegis appeared in the shadows of the stars, cutting through fleets like a blade through water. No taunts, no war cries. Only silence, followed by oceans of blood drifting through the cold black of space. Newsfeeds across the galaxy began to whisper the same phrase. Beware the quiet human. The silent tactician. Elias Vey was not reckless. He never struck without reason. He waited, studied, and then struck at the heart. At Karath Prime, he let the alien fleet swarm into the asteroid belt before triggering ancient mines that ripped them apart in a firestorm. At the Nebula of Vera, he lured 1,000 ships into ionized gas clouds, where their weapons misfired and engines froze, leaving them helpless as the Aegis carved them apart. At every battlefield, survivors whispered the same thing: the human never spoke, never threatened, never even appeared on comms. Only silence, followed by devastation. The turning tide. The Council could no longer ignore him. Delegates who once sneered at Earth now trembled in his presence. They remembered his stillness in the chamber, the way he had watched them with those quiet, unblinking eyes. He is not a man, the Vorkai delegate hissed, trembling before the Council. He is death-cloaked in silence. But Elias Vey did not attend the Council anymore. He had left diplomacy behind. He remained aboard the Aegis, leading a war of shadows, his name whispered in fear across the stars. The last stand of the Yalthran. The Yalthran Empire, proud and ancient, refused to bow. They gathered the largest fleet in recorded history, 10,000 warships, forged across centuries. The galaxy watched, certain that even the Aegis could not survive. The battle began at the edge of the Vera Rift. The Yalthran surrounded the Aegis on all sides, their cannons charging. Admiral Karath himself hailed Elias. Your silence ends today, human. We will erase your kind from the stars. Still, Elias did not answer. The battle raged. Thousands of ships fired, turning the void into blinding storms of plasma. For hours, the Aegis danced among them, slipping between fire, its dark weapons tearing holes in the Yalthran armada. But then Elias played his final hand. The rift exploded. The Yalthran had not known the truth. Elias had baited them into the gravitational maw of a dying star. With a single command, he ignited its collapse. The star consumed itself in a supernova, fire swallowing ships by the thousands. The void filled with oceans of blood and wreckage, drifting into the black. Only the Aegis emerged from the storm, silent as ever. The galaxy learned silence. The council fell silent. Where once they mocked, they now feared. Where once they dismissed, they now obeyed. The galaxy's most dangerous weapon had not been a fleet, nor an empire, nor a superweapon. It had been a single quiet human who had listened, waited, and struck when none expected. Elias Vey never delivered speeches, never declared conquest, never demanded fealty. His silence was enough. In that silence, empires drowned in oceans of blood. The laboratories of Earth were silent. Silent, except for the hum of machines and the soft scribble of pens across old paper. Dr. Aaron Sellas sat alone in his chamber, surrounded by holograms of alien biology, fragments of starship wreckage, and vials of something far more dangerous. He was not a soldier, not a commander, not a politician. He was quiet, so quiet that the Galactic Council barely remembered his name, much less his voice. Humans, the alien delegates mocked during council sessions, are too timid. Too weak. Too fragile. They placed their hopes in thinkers, not warriors. Pathetic. And so, when war came, no one expected Dr. Aaron Sellas to matter. The first invasion. The alien coalition, a dozen proud empires, descended on Earth like predators. They came with fleets of steel and plasma, their warships blotting out the stars. To them, Earth was a resource, not a people. A planet to be stripped bare. The skies over Sol flared with fire. Earth's orbital defenses fell in hours. Cities trembled as alien dreadnoughts loomed above, demanding surrender. In their arrogance, they sent warnings to Earth's leaders. Kneel, or drown in rivers of blood. But Earth did not kneel. In the deepest oceans, beneath miles of pressure and darkness, something stirred. Dr. Aaron's secret. Aaron had been working in silence for decades. He had studied not just human genetics, but alien DNA harvested from forgotten battlefields. He mapped how their cells adapted, how they grew, how they consumed. And then he built something new. A living weapon. It was not a machine, not a ship, not a bomb. It was a swarm. Millions of biomechanical organisms, microscopic yet vast, dormant within Earth's oceans. Each one carried a shard of intelligence, a hunger for survival, and an instinct written into their core: defend humanity. Aaron had never told the Council. He had never told Earth's generals. He feared what they might do with it. But now, as fleets of invaders cast shadows across his world, Aaron descended to the abyssal labs and whispered a single word to his creation. Awaken. The oceans rise. At first, nothing happened. The aliens laughed when their scans showed nothing unusual. The humans are desperate, they said. They hide in their waters like animals. But then the seas began to boil. From the depths, the swarm rose, a tide of glittering shapes, each a fusion of flesh and machine. They climbed into the skies, their wings shimmering like broken glass, their tendrils spreading across the atmosphere. The first alien fleet to fire upon them vanished. Not destroyed by plasma. Not torn apart by explosives. But devoured. The swarm latched onto ships, burrowing into their hulls, feeding on energy cores, converting metal into living tissue. Alien soldiers screamed as the walls around them pulsed with flesh and steel, as their veins filled with burning nanites. What had once been a proud armada became wreckage, and oceans of blood poured from the skies back into Earth's seas. The Council's horror. Across the galaxy, live transmissions showed the impossible. Fleets crumbled. Soldiers were consumed. Oceans of alien blood dyed Earth's waters crimson. And in the middle of it all stood Dr. Aaron Sellas, quiet as ever, watching from his hidden lab. This, whispered a delegate at the council, horrified. This is not war. This is extinction. They demanded to know who had built such a thing. Who had unleashed it? The answer chilled them. Not a general. Not a warlord. Not a tyrant. A quiet human. The swarm's song. The swarm did not stop at Earth's orbit. Guided by Aaron's genetic codes, it spread through the solar system, chasing retreating fleets into the dark. Each ship that fled became another seed, its wreckage feeding the swarm, its soldiers' blood turning into fuel. At first, Aaron guided them carefully. He whispered commands, keeping them close, limiting their hunger. But as they grew, their song began to echo in his mind. A chorus of 1,000,000 voices, asking only one thing, more. He realized the truth: he had not built a weapon. He had built a species. And like all species, it longed to expand. The counterattack. Desperate, the alien coalition gathered once more. This time, they sent their greatest fleets, tens of thousands of ships, armed with the strongest weapons of their empires. They swore to burn Earth to ash before the swarm could spread. Aaron stood on the cliffs of the Atlantic as the first wave entered orbit. He could feel the swarm inside the waters, pulsing, waiting for his command. The oceans trembled, glowing faintly red under the moonlight. Defend, he whispered. The seas split open. The swarm erupted like a storm, billions of glittering fragments rising into the sky. They tore through battleships, ignoring plasma fire, ignoring shields. Alien admirals screamed as their command decks flooded with living wires, as their soldiers were drowned in oceans of blood within their own ships. For every ship destroyed, the swarm grew stronger. For every soldier devoured, it learned more. By dawn, nothing remained. The quiet victor. The galaxy had changed. Where once they mocked Earth, now they feared it. Where once they sneered at humanity's fragility, now they trembled at the mention of Dr. Aaron Salas. But Aaron was no conqueror. He did not send the swarm across the stars. He kept them close, bound by his whispers, their hunger leashed by his will. Yet every night, when he closed his eyes, he heard them. The voices. The song of a species born in silence, waiting, always waiting, to drown the galaxy in oceans of blood. And he wondered. How long could he keep them leashed? The galaxy had forgotten Earth. Centuries of war had burned it down, leaving its cities in ash, its oceans poisoned, its people scattered. The alien empires fought over the ruins, each claiming a piece of the broken world, until even the memory of humanity became little more than a whisper. But not all humans were gone. One still lived. Her name was Mara Kale. The quiet wanderer. Mara was quiet. Too quiet. In the refugee colonies of the Outer Rim, she never raised her voice. She worked as a mechanic, repairing engines and patching hulls. To the aliens around her, she was just another forgotten refugee of a dead species. Harmless. Insignificant. They laughed at her silence. They mocked her fragile frame. Some whispered that humanity had been cursed, a race too weak to survive among the stars. Mara never argued. She simply kept her head down and listened. But in her blood, something slept. Something old. Something dangerous. The forgotten legacy. Long before Earth fell, the scientists of Sol had foreseen humanity's doom. They knew the alien empires would not allow them to rise. So they created a weapon not of steel, nor fire, nor ships. They hid it in their children. In their bloodlines. The Genesis Code, they called it. A genetic curse, dormant until awakened, capable of rewriting the very laws of flesh. Few carried it. Fewer survived its awakening. Mara Kale was one of them. And she didn't even know it. The spark of fate. It happened on the colony of Vathra, a mining outpost on the edge of the Nebula Rift. The Vorkai fleet arrived, demanding tribute, tearing through the colony's defenses like paper. Civilians ran, soldiers begged for mercy. Mara was cornered in the hangar, a broken wrench in her hand, trembling as Vorkai soldiers closed in. Another human rat, they sneered. Your kind should have died with your world. They raised their rifles. And then, something inside Mara broke. A surge of fire spread through her veins. Her body trembled, her skin glowing faintly with crimson light. The rifles fired, but before the plasma bolts could reach her, they dissolved into dust. The soldiers screamed. Their armor melted into their flesh. Their veins burst, flooding the hangar floor with rivers of blood. Mara collapsed, gasping. When she rose, the Vorkai fleet above was already tearing itself apart, their crews consumed by the same unseen curse that had awakened within her. The colony was silent. The quiet human had killed an entire fleet. The galaxy trembles. News spread faster than light. They ignored the human, the whispers began, until their fleets drowned in oceans of blood. The alien empires had dismissed humanity as extinct, broken, irrelevant. Now they realized their mistake. One survivor carried the weapon of their ancestors, and she had unleashed it without even trying. The Vorkai sent more fleets. Each one died the same way. Soldiers bled from their eyes before they could fire. Pilots screamed as their bodies twisted into unrecognizable shapes. Oceans of blood painted the void wherever Mara appeared. And still, she said nothing. The hunt. The Council declared Mara Kale the greatest threat in the galaxy. Armadas were dispatched. Assassins, spies, hunters, all sent to find the quiet survivor and end her before the curse spread further. But the Genesis Code was not just a weapon. It was survival itself. Every time they came for her, Mara grew stronger. Her body healed from wounds that should have killed her. Her mind sharpened, learning faster than machines. Her enemies' weapons turned against them, their blood answering to her like a tide. They thought they were hunting her. But she was hunting them. The Crimson Ascension. At the Battle of Thrynn's Gate, 10,000 ships surrounded Mara's refuge. They cornered her, cutting off every escape. She did not flee. She walked into the heart of their blockade, her small shuttle drifting silently among the dreadnoughts. Human, the Yalthrin admiral thundered across the calms. Your curse ends here. Speak your last words. But Mara did not speak. She never did. Her silence was her answer. And then the stars ran red. The fleets began to collapse, ships cracking open as blood poured from every seam. Alien soldiers turned on each other, screaming as their veins burst like rivers. In moments, the greatest armada in the galaxy was gone, not defeated, not destroyed, but consumed. When the battle ended, Mara stood alone, drifting among oceans of blood and shattered hulls. The legend of the quiet human. From that day, her name was no longer whispered. It was feared. Mothers told their children, do not speak too loudly of the humans, lest the quiet one hears you. Admirals trembled at the thought of sending fleets against her, knowing they would drown in crimson tides. She did not seek conquest. She did not build empires. She simply moved from system to system, a shadow in the stars. Where she walked, the blood of her enemies followed. And always, she remained silent. The end of silence. Years later, as the empires weakened and the galaxy trembled, Mara Kale stood at the edge of the Galactic Council chamber. The same dais where her people had once been mocked. Where humanity had been dismissed as nothing. Now, the chamber was silent. Thousands of eyes watched her. No one dared to speak. Mara looked across the chamber, her gaze steady, her lips still. For the first time in her life, she spoke. Just one word. Remember. And then she left, her silence following her like a shadow. The galaxy never forgot. They ignored the quiet human until their fleets drowned in oceans of blood.